Hey guys, so first things first, if I look like shit in this video or my eyes are swollen, it's because my husband beats me. Just kidding, it's actually 6 in the morning and I don't have a husband. But I really wanted to film despite it being so early because this has been a topic that has been on my mind lately. I think a lot about the psychology behind the mindset of the people that I typically critique on this channel. We classify them as social justice warriors. I'm not the biggest fan of the term. I think it's getting a little bit played out, but it works. And I've come to some conclusions about the psychology behind social justice, and I've broken it down into 3 parts, which I will go over in this video, which I think will be interesting. But I think it's only appropriate, since I have a channel that, criticizes social justice, to be transparent with you guys about one of the main reasons why I rail against them so hard, and that is that I used to be a social justice warrior. There was a time between the ages of, I'm gonna say, 16 to 21, that a lot of my beliefs and opinions and stances on different issues were actually wildly different than what they are now. And I know that on the internet, we tend to concretize our opinions and hold each other accountable for everything we've ever said, but in the real world, at least, people do change. And I'm aware that the promise of pictures is probably one of the main reasons why a chunk of you even click this video, so I will provide. Yes, I even looked the part. God, I looked like a fluorescent hermaphrodite or something. I looked like everyone I make fun of now, which is why I feel like I have the right to do it. At this point in my life, I vehemently believed that it was technically impossible for white people to experience racism, that women in the West faced crippling oppression, gender was a spectrum, and you were the Antichrist if you ate animals. I had a pretty persistent victim complex that maintained my idea that if only it weren't for straight white men, I would be a successful person and a happy person. So for all intents and purposes, I was a social justice warrior. And everyone I hung out with was as well. I've done a lot of self-reflection since then, and I think I understand the psychology behind social justice. I've broken it down into 3 components: the victim complex, which we talk about that one a lot, perpetual moral indignation, and community. I will explain. So the victim complex. During my stint as an SJW, like I said, I was between the ages of 16, 20, 21, so I was a young adult. I was figuring life out, and in many ways, my self-confidence, my self-esteem, and my sense of self and my path in life were not all there. And frankly, I was looking for anyone else to put the blame on other than myself. I think that even if you are the type of person who takes personal responsibility and makes a point to do that, it's kind of human nature. Your first instinct is to try to put it on someone else. You don't think, what did I do wrong first? You kind of go through the motions of, who did this to me? How did this happen to me? And social justice gives you a reason to do that. I was a young adult. I was broke. I had no real direction in life. I didn't know what I wanted to do with the life that I was given. And I was also figuring out that I was trans. So that's another little extra layer. And what happened to fall in my lap, oh so conveniently? The ideology of social justice, which taught me that my lack of success, my lack of happiness, my lack of security was not my fault, it was the world's. And it wasn't just this new realization that nothing in the world was my fault. It was also that I was entitled to something because of it. I mean, it's a very attractive mindset to someone who doesn't want to take accountability. Social justice provided me a scapegoat, and I rode off into the sunset. So next is the factor of perpetual moral indignation. Now, like I said, at this point in my life, I was young, I was not a very successful person, and so, if you don't have successes or achievements to brag about, what do you brag about? You brag about your morality. So like other SJWs, instead of vocalizing my successes or my achievements to the world, I was definitely constantly moral grandstanding and sharing my morality with the world, what I believed. It's basically virtue signaling to everyone around you constantly what a great person you are because you're angry about this perceived injustice. Very egotistical. In reality, it's like a look at me, I'm standing up against this perceived injustice. And another huge factor of it is constantly searching for injustices, or in some cases making them out of thin air, calling them microaggressions. You also convince yourself that because your position is the moral one, the righteous one, that anyone who disagrees with you in the slightest way is an awful person, is a racist, is a misogynist, etc., etc. You guys know all the buzzwords. And so that further serves your ego and your need to virtue signal, because you're then juxtaposed against a person who is a racist, is a misogynist, and you look like an amazing person in comparison. You understand? And the last one is community, because it's not just a set of beliefs, it is absolutely a community of people, a very large one. And that's one thing I will absolutely give them. And I think this is the reason why they were winning the culture war for so long, and maybe still are, is because they're absolutely organized. I made a lot of friends being a social justice warrior. I mean, they have events and organizations and groups set up on every campus in America, and there's absolutely a social component to this. And the more your social circle begins to fill up with these types of people, the more your beliefs are maintained, because you're then in an echo chamber in which everyone around you thinks the same thing, and so you see all your positions as default positions. It's like, hey, everyone I know believes this, it must be true. And this can really be said about most belief systems or ideologies, but social justice in particular has a really intense way of handling dissent. Even the slightest threat to their narrative, it's considered a moral atrocity. It's very culty, to be honest. So then the question becomes, how did I work my way out of that cult? And I guess the short answer is that I grew up, which is why it frightens me when I see like 30, 40-year-old SJWs or, 90-year-old SJWs, Bernie Sanders. I just began questioning things, which I guess to a certain extent is just in my nature. But whenever I would question, different things, the answer would always be, that's bigoted, don't even talk about it, don't even ask about it. And so after a while, I just got really fed up with that answer because it wasn't good enough for me. Another aspect of me moving out of that was the fact that I began transitioning, which I think a lot of people see being trans and being an SJW as one and the same, but they're not. Actually, it brought me out of it because I started to feel powerful when I started transitioning. I started to see myself, taking my life in my own hands, forging my own path, and sort of changing my own destiny. And that doesn't really mesh with an ideology that tells you you're a victim. I also became, a working adult. I got a job, and that instilled a lot of personal responsibility in me, something that, again, is contradictory to social justice. Not to sound like a motivational speaker, but it really is just about realizing you are powerful and you were given this one life, this one body to do what you want with it, and throwing away any ideology that tells you to be complacent and that you're powerless because someone else is powerful. No. Take that power for yourself. Don't sit back and cry and expect it to be given to you. And that is all I have to say about this topic. Hope you guys liked the video. And just a notice, you guys know that I've been doing weekly live shows here on my channel. This week, it'll be on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure you guys come. We have a ton of fun when we do these. Sometimes you guys get me to talk about things that make me cry, which I think you guys do on purpose. But we have a lot of fun. And yeah, love you guys. Bye.